Today, we have had an interesting conversation with one of my clients who bought land in Bwerenga, and it had to made me to go back and do some research about one of the most sought after location right now by the diaspora. So I'm making this video for especially for those people who have money. And it took me back to when she said, and when you see this, I know you will love this, is when she said when she bought when she first got to know about Bwerenga in 2012, the plot of land was around an acre of land was around 100 to 120 million, and it was very few people were going to that location because where it was in 2012, and many people were going to Garuga, but Bwerenga then didn't pick it up at the time. And you can say I made a little bit of some research and I came to and I know these are Facebook prices, but they are always indicative of what is on the ground. This was in 2012 where someone was advertising an acre of land near the 100 meters away from the lake at 120 million. So you can say average that was the price in 2012. On their part, they bought land in 2015 when it had reached 180 million, and that was the trigger point of like prices are increasing, it's time for me to purchase. And I've always said land will make you money, especially if you're buying and selling. That doesn't mean it will always make you the most money given the alternatives they are on the market. When you make some research right now, the plot in Bwerenga, an acre in Bwerenga in a similar location has reached around 550 million. I did a simple research and I noticed here you can see Bukasa Bwerenga, Kauku, same location, prime location near the lake, and it has reached 550 million up to 500 if you are negotiating, and then you can subdivide, which means if you are a selling person, you bought your land at 120 million in 2012, right now you can sell it to a maximum of 550 million, a lot of money. What they do not say is this, right? So I'll first do a summary here. In 2012, come on, you invested 120 million. Let's not even talk about how much you spent on broker fees and legal fees, but we can estimate that and say the cost was like 10%, and the titles is cost of land, because we need to be very realistic here. Costs incurred. So the total cost was 120 plus that. And then they come here and they say it's 2025. Let's assume someone can give you 550 million. And the costs you're going to incur is, let's say, 15 million. Let me even put it, let me say 20 million, because the brokers also want a good price. So that means the total amount you have incurred, you are going to make profits is 530. And what they do not tell you is this, that 530 minus 132, then someone is going to tell you they have made a net profit of 400 million in 12 years. Amazing. What that means is they invested 120 million plus the 12 million of the cost. We can even put it here to this to 8. Yeah, 10 million, that's okay. And they have made over 400 million in profit in 12 years. If someone had 120 million, 120 million in 2012, we come here. When people talk about the money they were making, when we go back to what you have seen on the real estate, that they bought at 120 million, right now it's worth 550 million, amazing. And they had the discipline to keep that land for over 12 years. Imagine if we apply the same behavioral discipline to treasury bonds. Now, this is the bond I can easily use because it was issued in 2014. At the time, 2 years before, 2 years after, but we can easily kind of create a perspective on that, and it has existed over that period of time. And what we can see around that time, the bonds were around 15, 16, 17. They were growing at the time. At one point, bonds in Uganda were offering close to 19% per annum. But to be sincere, let's assume for this one, let's use a 16% um, averagely times 90%, because after tax, you don't get the after tax. And we say 2012, 2013, same thing which they did, no amount invested there. Now, you have to sit back and ask yourself, perfect, this is where we are, you know? So if, and this is the conversation we are telling people, the simplest gospel truth, that someone who had 120 in 2012 and they invested it and they have compounded their money at the lowest of 14%, but you have seen at one point rates were reaching at 18, 19%, 18, 19%. That means they would have even compounded much better. That same person would have close to 800 million right now in treasury bonds. Same discipline. The same discipline someone has when they buy land and keep it there without selling a single piece of land. It's the same thing you can apply in the treasury bond and keep it flat there. But imagine at the time they were offering 17%. Imagine if this was 17%, because that was the rate at that point, like what we are seeing right now, the 17%, that bond would be close to over 800 million. But what I challenged them more is to think about is this, let's extend this to 2030. 2030. Let's come back to our plot of land here. We have seen you bought it in 2012, 120 million. Right now, it has grown in value. It's at 150 million. When we look at them, they are selling them. This is a 50 decimals for 230 million, which means it's almost the same money. When you come down here, this one is selling beautiful 2 acres at 600 million per acre. So we can even use that figure, whichever figure you want to use for Bwerenga, And when you look at them, they are growing. The place is one of the most sought after place. But do you think, and this is the bigger question which I'm going to pose in writing, if I come back to real estate here, let me put it down here. Realistically, and I will even write it here. Do you think an acre of land in Bwerenga will reach 1 billion in 5 years from now, in 2030? That is the bigger question, right? That if you are invested in land, do you think realistically in 5 years from now, an acre of land in Bwerenga is going to reach 1 billion? I don't see it, but it's possible. Yet when someone is to go to the bond, that same person right now, if they continue holding their money they had invested in the bond, that bond would be close to 1.7 billion. The behavioral aspect, these are excels, these are mathematics, that right now even if you bring it back to the 16%, which is the average, the 14 which we always get, 1.5 billion by 2030, and maybe to even stretch it further. Right now, let's come back and say here 2025, 2026. They have the land, so I can easily assume they have the 500 million. Right now, we are investing at 17%. If they are to sell that land right now and they get that whole 500 million and they deposit it in the treasury bond and they leave it there to grow as the same because they have the discipline. By the time in 10 years from now, they will have close to 2 billion. What are the chances that an acre of land in 10 years from now will reach 2 billion in Bwerenga? That is the mindset we are trying to tell people. The mindset of treasury bonds. It has nothing to do with everything that we say we do not want you to hold land. But realistically speaking, except if you are buying and flipping, buying and selling, of which that is trading. But for majority of us, especially people in the diaspora that have a lot of money that you are just holding on to land, waiting for it to reach a titled amount that you say you have made more money. Actually, you might be missing out on much more money. Already, they bought it at 120 million. We are in 2025, it's around 550 million, 560. So they have already made close to 400 million. What would you advise that person to do? Personally speaking, sell. Especially if your goal is to make money. If your goal is to grow your income, sell. You already have other titles. If this was to make you money, it has made you enough money. Now you sell and put money where it's going to make more money. And these are disclosed. These are simplest of the numbers to say that, okay, let's look at it this way. That on my part, if they had put that 120 million right now in the bond 12 years ago, in 2012, the rates were 15, 16, 17 and above. And they compounded and they started to grow their money every single year. At one point, rates reached 19% in 2016, 2017, and in 2023. This is just a kid's play. Their money would be in 2025 close to 800 million, and and if you have done it well, it will be close to a billion. And the next 5 years are going to even be more interesting. The compounding power to move from 700 to 1.5 billion is even incredibly enormous. Hmm? Incredibly enormous. So that's what you have to think through. How many plots of land do you have that are sitting idly, thinking they are growing, yet they have reached what you would call the law of diminishing return? They have grown exponentially. They have reached the level where they are now giving you a 3-4% return every single year. Now that now going down, they're now giving you less than 2%. Yet you can move on and put your money in something else. You reevaluate your portfolio. Investment is about reinventing and reevaluating and reinventing every single time. Do not hold on to real estate, onto plots of land that are not even giving you that adequate value. Yet you can get your money and get better return somewhere else. It's as simple as that. And I've used the Bwerenga but we're going to be doing different plots of land, especially those where people are saying, okay, they have made a significant amount of profits. Let's reevaluate the prices and look at it. What would be the return if you are to do something different? Thank you so much, Alex Kakan.